Evening Rock Nation chaps, here in studio with me, you can see there on the side, in his all his business, is Eugene Robinson. Hey Eugene, how are you doing today?
Well, I just finished JiuJitsu. I had a work meeting, so I'm doing all right. I'm glad to be talking to you.
Oh, this sounds great. Thank you very much for having us. It's actually a massive pleasure to having you in studio. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, good. Okay, good. That makes two of us then.
It's good. So that's now Eugene Robinson is actually the voice of Bunel, Italian project, which is having like Franz Valente and Xavier Rondo in and many more, and also is the frontman and voice of Oxbow's historical band in the I shall say like post-punk, or shall we say hardcore band from the 80s until now. What do you reckon?
Well, Vice magazine calls us art rock. I don't at this point now. I think Oxbow is just Oxbow. You know, I mean, you don't go to a record store and ask for us anymore, so it doesn't. We don't need the category to make sense of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. So before we go into Oxbow, let's talk a bit about Killers Like Us. It's been actually out from the 18th of February 2022. Great album, like the third one from Bunel, and it's actually a kick in your face every single time we're listening to amazing atmospheres. What do you think that literally is making Bunel such a constant and solid project in between like 3 albums that have been made so far?
Well, it was, I mean, for me personally, it was weird. You know, I don't like to listen to the record until I actually have it, right? So I'll listen to the music, and then I don't sing. What you hear when you listen to the music is the first time I've stepped up to the microphone to sing it. Before that, it's only existed in my head. But so I practice in my head. We stand in front of the mic to record it, and then it's born. I don't like to listen to it again until it's this thing, right? Until it's this thing I can hold in my hand. For people just listening, it's a CD itself. And so I've listened to it for the first time for real this week. And my thoughts were that this was a great record. I mean, naturally, this shouldn't be a surprise that I would feel that way. But more importantly, what I felt is the thought that formed itself in my head was I could do even better, right? If I felt like I could not do any better, I would not want to do any other record. And when I say better, in my mind, I don't mean sing better or sound better, but that I could make it meet what my soul wants it to do much more effectively. And that is nothing you can force. That is something that happens, and you're lucky if it happens a lot. You're lucky if it happens once, you know. So what I want to do is another record where I can actually, you know, clear everything out of the way, and exactly what happens in my soul is what comes out of my mouth and into that microphone and ends up on the record. So if you should be able to track that. Resting Place for Strangers was here. Easy Way Out is here. Killers Like Us is here, and the conversation gets clearer and more direct, and pretty soon it'll be like watching something be born as it's born. And that's ultimately, I think, as an artist, what you're shooting for, that deep satisfaction that comes from being completely understood exactly as you are meant to be understood.
Sounds. Do you believe this one is coming with experience, or it comes with time or practicing?
More the former than the latter. I mean, like I can hear. I've been doing music since 1980, right? So a long time, and I can listen to some of the music I made a long time ago and what I can hear is that I'm not ready. I'm not. My mind is. It's like a type of meditation. My mind was, you know, kind of full of garbage. And I don't say garbage. Garbage makes it sound bad. My mind was full of other things. And, you know, as you start to get better at what you do, you realize that this conversation that you have, you as a creator, the producer, that the conversation that you're having, you can't allow for any of those other things to interfere in your understanding of what it is that you're doing, right? In early days, I mean, clearly, I set out to be in a certain type of band. Like I said, okay, 1980, I want to be in a, hardcore, a punk rock band. I played saxophone in some punk rock band, and then I said, okay, this is not really, I'm not really expressing myself here. So I want to do a hardcore band. And then with Oxbow, which was the first band that I did after the hardcore band, I was just like, yeah, hardcore is not satisfying to me. I want to do a record that speaks to the deep inside of me. And that's why Fuckfest was initially supposed to be a suicide note. Yeah, I didn't want to. I'm a writer, and it would have been quite easy to write the suicide note about what I was very upset about. But it seemed to be like everybody wrote a suicide note. I said, why don't I record a suicide note so that everybody, the people who this is meant for, will be able to hear it and understand exactly why I killed myself. Right? I mean, ultimately, I chose not to do that, to kill myself, but the way of working, where it was like nobody else but that one person in the world was going to hear this record. That's a methodology that helped and made it hard to describe what Oxbow was, like it's hard to describe what Buñuel is now. I mean, it's what my soul is asking for, right?
Absolutely. It's really interesting, though. Thank you for that. I was just asking one thing, regarding the gap in between The Easy Way Out and Killer Like Us is about 4 years' time, isn't it? Is this because pandemic happened, or you guys had the record ready, or you didn't have the opportunity to have new material coming out?
I don't know. I mean, it's a combination of all these things, I mean, what we've tried to do with each of the records was to do a release that existed on both sides of the Atlantic, right? And to have it, like this one is La Tempesta and Profound Lore. But I mean, American labels, I mean, believe it or not, it's always been a struggle for me to find a label. I mean, it's a struggle for Oxbow to find. And, I would see people at our shows who had record labels. And I go, oh, I saw so-and-so from this record label, so-and-so from that record label with Oxbow. And I'm going to say, hey, we're doing a new record. You want to put it out? And they'd be like, oh, I love you guys, but I know. We don't want to put the record out. And so this was the first one that we said, okay, I mean, clearly, in terms of satisfaction, we toured the first two all through Italy. And La Tempesta, I think those were done with La Tempesta and Goodfellas. It was a nice relationship, but we were really saying, look, I saw Jabi, and he came to see Oxbow in Paris, and he said, Buñuel should be playing here too. We should be playing in Berlin. We should be playing I mean, those guys, of course, want to play America. They haven't realized how horrible that is, but okay. So I was convinced that we should try to find another label, and it just happened that way. Like, we were looking for a label for Oxbow. Profound Lore said, we'll put the record out. At the same time that Epicac said we should put the record out. We said Epicac is probably a better place for Oxbow. So I wanted to tell a guy from Profound Lore, we're going to go with Epicac, sorry. But I thought, I got something that you might really like. If you don't like it, that's fine. And I let him hear Killers Like Us, a record I have not heard myself until this week. I told Jabi to send it to him. And he liked it enough to do. He goes, it's interesting. This is a direction I've been wanting to go. Instead of just strictly metal, I want to go to something that was a little bit weird, and that's it. Yeah, I'll put it out. And so that worked out really well for us. Getting that stuff to happen takes time. Getting it to record takes time. And then we had a personnel change as well, which I think you might be referring to. The founder of the group, Pier Paolo, is no longer with the group, so we had to find somebody else to play bass. So I think that took some time as well.
How do you feel about that? I mean, like, honestly, Pier Paolo is always had a particular way to play bass guitar. It was really kind of on edge. This is one of his trademark since when he was in One Dimensional Man. Do you felt actually the sound had any kind of change during the process of getting a new bass player? You feel actually is matching more what you guys want to do?
I love Pierre Paolo, and I miss him quite a lot. In actual fact, but you know, I mean, what is it that Woody Allen once said? He goes, 98% of everything is just showing up. Yeah, so it gets very hard to record a record if you don't show up to the recording of the record. So, but Andrea Lombardini, who is now playing bass, is it's interesting. I mean, he has a template to work with that was established by Pier Paolo, right? It'd be one thing if you are a band that has no records out and an instrumentalist comes in and replaces another one. But with two records out that very much were considered to be successful artistically, that really narrows the scope of what it is that the musician can do. But that's not a bad thing, right? At all. In fact, that makes it much more interesting to me. I did a project, Salminio, with Jamie Stewart from JiuJitsu. Mm-hmm. And at first he said, "Yeah, I want to give you 8 songs." And I go, "Great." And then he changed his mind and he goes, "I'm going to send you 22 songs. Jeez. I go, 22 songs? Jesus, that's going to be really a lot. He goes, "No, but they're really short." And so to me, I always looked at it like an artistic challenge. I mean, how can you develop an emotional presence in the song that's 1 minute and 30 seconds long? But it was a challenge. I mean, I had a very narrow window to work with, and I welcomed it as a challenge. And Andrea, I think, rose to the occasion. I mean, there was a challenge established by 2 other records. How can I be the most creative me that I can be playing bass when the template for how that bass should be played has already been established by somebody else? So if I listen to Resting Place for Strangers, and then I listen to An Easy Way Out, and I listen to Killers Like Us, he has met and matched it. In other words, he's embodied the spirit of Pier Paolo's bass playing, but in his own way. So it is Andrea, it is him, not Pier Paolo, right? And I found it to be quite complimentary. So
honestly, though, listening to the album, listening to the whole, I couldn't find any kind of black spot in his playing bass guitar. He was looking absolutely prepared to the challenge, and honestly, it was coming through though a different kind of mannerism, or even to play the instrument. It was actually really well played from his side. I mean, big shout out to the guy. He did a brilliant job from my point of view. How do you guys record the album? Because you live in LA, right? You're in California at the moment.
No, I live in Northern California, near San Francisco.
Near San Francisco. So you're living near San Francisco. The chaps they are in Turin and all around the world. I mean, all around Italy, though. How do you guys record? You go record remotely, so they send you over. You go in studio, you put voice on it, or you flew to Italy to record something and going back.
Oh no, the way everybody records now. I mean, my friends in the band Neurosis, they all live in different places. All the guys in Dillinger Escape Plan all lived in different places. I mean, and the way I record vocals, it wouldn't have been. I could have flown to Italy, but the reality is it would have been exactly the same, because what I do is to go into the recording booth and I don't come out until a record is finished, up to and including, if I have to, pissing in jars because I don't want to leave the room, and there are reasons for that. I mean, one is kind of a thematic, dramatic reason where I don't want to, it's not movies where you interrupt the scene to record a scene. It's more like theater in my mind, where it's continuing, it happens along a continuum. But also too, there are changes in temp. If I leave the room, there are changes in temperature that would affect the voice and so on. So so I record a lot with this guy Monty Vallier, who used to play bass for some people who remember or care for that band Swell, and he has been, and he's done a lot of stuff on Oxbow's Thin Black Duke. He helped. He's got his own studio in San Francisco, and he understands. He really understands precisely how it is that my voice, how I'm deciding and wanting to use my voice and the dynamic range in that voice, and he's developed different vocal schemas for each record. So it made sense to record exactly as we have recorded before, which is I go into a room with a bunch of lyrics and then I come out when the record's done. So
it's great. You're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, isn't it?
Yes, I just came from there. Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I heard that before. So
yeah.
it was one of my questions, though. For how long have you been doing that?
Oh man. I've been doing a grappling art since 1976. 1976, I started wrestling in high school, and then, then I took karate, and then Muay Thai, and then Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, and then boxing, and then, but with this same coach, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I've been there since 2010. So, and I compete. I'm a brown belt. I compete, and I mean, it's a lifestyle, right? So I'm not bad. I wish I was a lot better, but I've trained in Milan,
Yeah.
at that place, Manimal. There's a guy who is a friend of mine there. He trains there, and he says, "Yeah, come on by." So every time I go to Milan, I'll train at Manimal.
When I'm actually thinking about martial arts, right? There's all about discipline, order, control. But if you think about post-punk or our core music, is kind of all these kind of values they are just put aside. There's a more regarding destroy everything, oppose, and protest. Is actually this your education, like as martial art education, helping you on stage somehow?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I've told people before, there are lots of people who've been making music as long as I have, who are still making music, but they don't look the same. I mean, I love Keith Morris from Circle Jerks, but his stage performance has always been largely he just stands in front of the microphone and sings, and that works well for him. But I want to. I mean, it's really important for me to be as expressive with the music as I'm able to be. And I'm only able to be that way if I prepare for our shows the way you might prepare for a martial arts event, a fight or something. And I'm not the only one. I mean, everybody in Oxbow, before we tour, we prepare for the stage like you should, so that you can, that your body is able to meet the dictates of your soul. Your soul says do this, and your body says okay, right? We just do it differently. Like I think Greg is a big Oxbow's drummer, is a big mountain biker. Dan, bicycles and rollerblades, Nico, bicycles and walks or runs. So we all, and very much the same, I think, with Buñuel. Franz is, I mean, the drummer's going to have to be in shape. So whether he's rehearsing 8 hours a day, or, I mean, these are all things so that you can, and it's always slightly disappointing to me when you've got some, there are people, I guess I can mention the name. I mean, one of the most fantastic shows I've ever seen in my entire life happened to be the Bad Brains. 3 nights they played at CBGB's. There's a video of it, and you can actually see me there in the video at the show. And it changed everything in terms of how I thought about music. And so I was super happy when they went on tour, maybe about 10 years ago, like 2010. And I was excited to go see them play. And I forgot, right? I forgot that there was a big difference between 1982 and 2010. I just didn't, for some reason, just didn't think of it. And and you don't want it to be the same band. And I understand it not being the same band, but I don't understand. If I wasn't doing music, I'd still be exercising, right? I mean, I'm trying to fight death, and I'm doing it the best way I know how, and that includes everything. I got 4 kids, right, and I have all daughters as well, so I got to stay in shape. I got to be able to beat their husbands to death. So, so it's not like if I stop doing music, I'm still going to do this. And also the kind of person I am. I think I probably need to stay in shape because I'm likely to get beaten to death. It just happens.
There was this sentence actually there. You've always been telling me when I was part of a company, we had the Sifu, James Mitchell or something like that, coming to us and saying winning but not fighting. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you know, I view it as an extension of philosophy, right? I mean, you know, and I want my philosophy to be able to stand or fall on the basis of solid reasoning, logic, and you know, strength of argument. But a lot of times, if you're winning in an exchange like that, whatever winning might be, you might meet somebody who's not as smart and who's like, you know, it quickly devolves into "fuck you," and and okay, I'm okay. That doesn't, you know, these are just word structures connected to thought patterns. I don't mind for people telling me "fuck you," but then I remember I had a problem with motorcycle gang guy, and he would, you know, he's standing in front of me. We were arguing about something, and I was like, okay, I've had it. I'm not so interested in this exchange. And I go to walk around him, and he steps in front of me, and I go to walk around the other side, and he steps in front of me, and then finally I look up and I look at him in his eyes, and I say, "You're gonna have to move." In other words, it seems like we're heading toward a fight here that I'm trying to avoid. However, if that's where you'd like to go with this, and I say that, and then the guy, I think he ends up telling me, "fuck you." And I said, okay, I'm going to give you until a count of 3 to get out from in front of me, or stop trying to keep me from leaving. And the guy just stood there. And this is a point of argument to this day. A friend of mine who was there was like, well, you know, you kind of cheated. I go, what do you mean cheated? They said, well, you counted 1, 2, and then you punched him. And I go, well, that's funny, right? Because do you punch on 3, or do you count 3 and then punch? In my mind, you go 1, 2, ba boom. That's the punch, right? So of course it didn't make a difference because he was not prepared for it no matter what. Now, you know, there were some people who were divided. They were like, oh, you shouldn't have hit that guy, you know? And I go, what were my options? What were my options? You know, everywhere I went to walk, he was standing in front of me. He clearly needed this to happen. And once I was clear that this is what he was clear about, you know, I thought that it was a teachable moment, and he was asking me to help him. And I thought that I was doing, it's hard to understand for many people who don't train with martial arts, but I thought that I was giving him what he needed in that moment in time. And it was a pro-social thing as far as I was concerned, you know.
So you believe actually he was asking for that? He was not prepared, that he knew it, that he was not prepared? Or
he was asking, he clearly needed that to happen. That none of what happened was an accident, you know. I mean, if the situations were reversed, I let him pass. I certainly let him pass after the first time he tries to get by, and I stand and say, no, I'm talking to you. I would say that, and the guy goes, no, I don't want to talk to you. I'd like to, you know, I'd stand out of the way. I'm not, we're talking or we're fighting. We're not talking and fighting, right? If you decide to not talk, then we should fight. If we're going to fight, then we should fight. You know, if we're not going to fight, then let's talk. But to be able to close a circle on that philosophically, my understanding is always that there's got to be some sort of willingness to engage physically with somebody. And one of the reasons I like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is because it's a very close quarter sport, right? I don't spend that kind of time that close to any other human being that I'm not having sex with, like ever, right? And the reality, interpersonal conflict should always be that personal, right? I mean, to me, Americans shoot each other quite a lot. And there's something terribly impersonal about shooting somebody, right? It's just something that, it's like something that it's a remote event to a lot of people. That's why they do it so easily and so readily and so often here in America. And then you have these jails full of people who like regret what they've done because it didn't have reality until a person is shot to death. And then it has reality and everybody's sorry afterwards. And that's a terrible way to go through life, being sorry about what you've done.
Have you ever been sorry to kick the ass of someone?
No, because, you know, in many cases, these were people who really deserved it. You know, a friend of mine runs to me and says, this guy tried to rape me, you know, so we found him and we, you know,
yeah,
did exactly what should have been done in my mind in that instance. You know, some people, I've written an article about it, and some people go, well, you were just a vigilante. You didn't, that's not helping anybody. He was free to go. You should have put him in the wheels of justice and had the police deal with it. I go, the police, huh? The police? The police, they're good for something, but I've never seen them stop a crime yet. So I police in the family. I understand it's a tough job, but I still defend what was done at the time. I don't know. I listen, like I say in my fight book, the fights I've started, in which cases, had I won them, I would have felt guilty about it, or fights where I got my ass kicked. so, so the system really works really well, right? I started fights, and as a result of the fights I started, I got my ass kicked. So you know what I did? I stopped. I stopped starting fights. Right? It's easy enough. And once I stopped starting fights, I still had fights, but I wasn't losing them. So, and that could just be a function of how long I've done martial arts. But yeah, I mean, you do realize, of course, this has nothing to do with music and art.
Yeah, absolutely. It's still art, because martial art is still an art, though. But
it is true. It is true.
Yeah,
street fighting is not so much an art, though.
Yeah, absolutely not. I agree with that. Okay, let's move back on music a bit. Regarding protest music and so on, is coming back again in. I mean, 2010 was a great year for protest music, because Idols and so on, all the Bristol scene, let's say like Heavy Lungs, Idols, Black Midi, all these bands, they literally came back and starting to protest regarding something. There was an intense movement was coming out. There was actually a post-punk. So it seems like that everything was happening during the 80s and 90s, in particular in US with, I'll say like Minor Threat, you guys, and so on. It was actually coming back on the light. But at some point, those things, they look like there was just a recycle of whatever was happening before, or a trend. Do you believe that there is still a meaning behind protesting in music, or it is just something to actually have some couple of more extra likes on Instagram or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think your second point, your tips the hand in terms of what I'm actually thinking. Now, there's some people who can. Let me put it this way: I've never believed in the honesty of protest music. And I'm taking a long view, and I'm thinking about Woody Guthrie, right? I'm talking about everybody who I saw in the 60s. My parents were into music. I was born in 1962. So in the late 60s, there was quite a lot of protest music that I was exposed to at free concerts in New York City where I grew up or whatever. And I've inherently found it, because it puts you at cross purposes with commerce, right? In fact, commerce is more nimble and more aggressive, and ultimately more distorting than any kind of interest in whatever pro-social activity is involved in your protesting. So like there was Tom Robinson, I felt Tom Robinson was pretty deeply earnest about what he was talking about, because Tom Robinson was largely about gay rights, and Tom Robinson was gay. So it was as personal as it could be with the Tom Robinson band. Billy Bragg, to a certain extent, I thought may have, I didn't feel like he was full of shit. But there are a lot of people, and of course then, when all the hardcore hit, and, and largely that seemed to be all protest music of a certain variety, but it just seemed to be like something that people who were having a creativity blackout might do, and by this I mean, you'll ever listen to latter day Metallica? And I know it's popular to criticize them, and I'm about to do that, but I'm not criticizing their music. I'm about to criticize James Hetfield's vocals. And it's clear at a certain point that James Hetfield he does this, there's a vocal affectation where it's like, and it's okay in my mind, because he's a guitar player who happens to sing versus a singer who plays guitar, or just a singer. but there's a point at which he just doesn't know what to say or do, and he just wants to put a vocal placeholder in there. And so what does he do? And everybody who hears Metallica knows what I'm about to do. He just goes, yeah. That has no emotional value or no intellectual value, no artistic value as far as I could see. It's just a farty noise that he makes when he doesn't know what else to do vocally. It's like Andy Warhol at one point was being filmed for something. He goes, I don't know what to do with my hands. Which is really interesting, right? Because Andy Warhol, he's known to us because of precisely what he did with his hands. So, but I liked his honesty about it. Whereas, Hetfield just does this vocal thing. And I largely feel that, people in the hardcore era were doing protest music, unless it was deeply personal, just because it was, I guess, okay, yeah, fuck the state. Yeah. But really, a friend of mine from back in those days said to me, and he's talking about theoretical, he goes, or philosophical, fundamentally, he goes, what about all that shit we used to think, man? Don't you think I go, whoa, what are you talking about? And he was trying to make a divide between shit he thought when he was a young man that he was great, and now that he's older. I go, no, that's completely informed my approach to reality. I've met presidents, man. I've been, as a result of my daytime job, met very serious people, but it hasn't changed the fact that my identification and my understanding of myself at fundament is as a hardcore guy. I mean, I had a boss famously say to somebody about me, I can't figure out whether Eugene doesn't give a shit or he's just acting like he doesn't give a shit. Well, he learned the hard way that, that I'm not, there's no acting. There's no acting. In fact, I was watching this documentary out about Andy Warhol. So he comes up again, and he's talking about Jean-Michel Basquiat, and when he gets a bad review in the New York Times, and it really hurt him. And I'm like, how are you going to be 25 years old and get your feelings hurt? And then I realized, there's a fighter who I used to like, and he came out, and the audience was booing him, and I knew him. I'd seen him and trained with him. I could see it really hurt him. And me as a hardcore guy, a punk rock guy, I come out and the audience boos me, and I'm like, yeah, because no matter how much you hate me, it's a drop in the ocean to how much I hate you. So it's like, you got negativity. It doesn't hurt my feelings. Nothing is going to. Your opinion of me has no bearing. It doesn't have any weight at all. So, hardcore is completely informed. I don't throw any of that stuff away, but I'm not singing songs like America Must Die anymore either. I don't really give a shit whether America dies or not, but I don't need to write a song about it. My songs are much more about stuff that's in here, and I'm not really thinking about America except as a epiphenomena to my real existence, right?
Yeah. Sounds good. Scrolling around the internet a lot, and going into research of your old gigs with Augsburg, there is a part that you are, as you said as well during one interview, making a part of the audience, part of the acts.
Part of the show.
Yeah, part of the show. Sorry about that. Basically, after saying the sentence, why everyone is so sensitive, shouting down quite often, though. It really actually... I was thinking about the last night for a long time, because it looks like everyone at the moment, they're really so sensitive about everything. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay. I'm fine with discussion. I'm completely fine with discussion, and I'm willing to, one of the things is a big deal with Dave Chappelle talking about how he's being canceled over the whole transit issue. And the thing is, I'm game, man. I'm completely into it. I love words, and I love the play of language. And somebody introduced themselves to me the other day as she, them. And I was like, that's cool. I've heard she, her, I've heard they, them, but she, them. And I was like, oh man, how do we, the language is changing. in front of our eyes, and people are complaining about it. To me, this is like a really wonderful moment. I mean, you know, when Israel was created as a state, it wasn't a fait accompli that you know, Hebrew, Ivrit, was going to be the language that they spoke. They had to decide that they were going to create a, you know, a language around, because a nation needs to have a language. So our nations do have languages. I don't say needs. So, I mean, this is the kind of thing where people are, I'm game. You know, my mother at one point was talking to me about the Me Too thing, and she was like, well, I hope you don't get caught up in that. And I go, isn't it funny that like a guy like me has actually managed to not have those fucking Me Too problems? Why? Because I'm not a fucking piece of shit. It's really simple. Like, hey, you want to have sex? No? Okay. Nobody's complaining about the first one. Like, you want to, you know, people are complaining about when the guy asks 4 or 5 or 5, 15, 20 times. People are complaining about, hey, why don't we come up to the room and talk about your comedy act, like with Louis C.K. And they come up to the room and he stands in front of the door and pulls his dick out. I don't have the need for subterfuge. I would say to you, hey, let's go to the room so I can jerk off and you can watch me. And then you could say, thanks, but no thanks. And I would go, okay. I mean, you know, these are all words. They shouldn't hurt anybody. I'm glad to talk to you about, you know, whatever it is that's on our minds, and you should feel equally glad to say no or yes, or I mean, it's all discussion until people start trying to punch you in the face. So I'm happy with the increased sensitivity, and the people I find who complain about it are people who are generally, in my mind, on a certain level, really full of shit. You know.
Agrees. What's the deal with Oxbow right now? You guys are releasing a new album really soon, isn't it?
Oh, this has been an exciting week, man. A couple of things happened this week. Kristen Hayter from Lingua Ignota sang some, put her vocals on the record. Roger Manning, who used to be in Jellyfish, played some keyboard and also sang some stuff on the record. And Nico finished the acoustic guitar overdubs. So Joe Ciccarelli will begin mixing Love's Holiday soon. And the most exciting part about the Love's Holiday thing for me, which is the next Oxbow record, is that we recorded 19 songs, something we've never done before. Right?
Oh yeah, that sounds great.
Clearly, we're not going to put 19 songs on the record. So now the interesting Oxbow discussion is form factors. Do you do a double record? Do you do a record and several singles? Do you do a record and an EP? How do you, or do you, you know, so in a very Oxbowian way, we're trying to figure out, well, how does that play out? What is that going to look like? And, you know, Joe Ciccarelli is on his own with Nico to mix it, but ultimately we'll come to a decision about what that looks like. But it's exciting. It's exciting.
Sounds good. Oh, sorry about that. I got the dog.
Yeah, there you got your dog. Yeah.
Sorry, dude.
No, that's right. Yeah.
I'm just gonna. I mean, I'm gonna adjust this one. No worries. Did you listen to Sina Get Ready? Talking about Lingua Ignota.
No, I haven't. I haven't listened to it.
Okay, cool. No worries. So we'll jump that. We got that as well. So this is great. It's amazing. Just gonna ask you a couple of questions regarding back to Brunel, because I mean, like we saw him there. So you guys gonna do any gigs anytime soon? So
yeah. Brunel's got a tour set up for July. 14 show tour. And it's going to be, we're playing the Supersonic Festival in Birmingham, England. And so for the first time, Buñuel is, we're playing in Italy as well, Padova, but we're also getting to France and to Germany and to Belgium and to England. So that's super exciting. It's normal for me, but it's not normal for me in the context of Buñuel. What was really funny with Buñuel for me is, and it was new to my experience, right? It's like, okay, we get ready to do the show. Okay, we're going out on stage. And Jabi and Franz and Pier Paolo would go out on stage and people would be like, yay! And then, you know, the singer is always the last to walk out. One, because those guys have you know, guitars to tune. They get to get the things right. And you just, as a singer, you just don't want to be standing out there like, what the fuck do I do? So you wait, and then you come out. And under an Oxbow context, when I come out, people know, one, the show is about to start, and it's like, oh, it's Eugene. The cool thing about Buñuel was, people, Javi goes out, you know, Pierre Paolo, Franz, everybody cheers like crazy. And then I go out, they're like, who the fuck is that guy? It was so cool. Like, the people in the audience who knew Oxbow was a very small number, but, you know, because those guys all had other bands, they knew, you know, they knew them. So it was like, I was like, oh, this is so cool, because I knew that whatever happened after that, that large, like the majority of people in the audience had no idea what was coming. And that's really a fun place to be, you know?
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I mean, the guys are really coming from a kind of elitary position in Italy. Let's be honest, being in like a massive band.
Yeah.
Like After Hours for Ages and all these projects and the Teatro di Aurora and whatsoever. No, that's great though. I mean, that was a great story. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. That now they know your name in Italy, isn't it? I mean, like they're shooting you out.
Well, you know, whatever. I mean, for me, it's the fun part is play. Look, we played a show. Oxbow played a show with Maynard from Tool. He had that side project called The Perfect Circle, and you know, he said, "Well, there's a catch. What's the catch? We don't have enough songs to headline, so technically, we want you to headline." I was like, "What the fuck? This is shitty, but you know, we're gonna do it anyway." So they play. The club is packed, and then we said, "Well, let's do the changeover real quick." So you know, so we do the changeover, and people are like, "Oh shit, maybe Tool is coming on." And the lights go down, and the lights come up, and it's us playing, and you haven't lived. I mean, this is the thing about me being a hardcore guy. Like, none of this shit hurts my feelings. You haven't lived until you see 300 some odd people look at you and they're like, we're going. They just laugh. And you're watching them as they leave. And like another singer would have been like, oh, where? And I was just like, yeah, go ahead. Hey, take a look at my cock before you go. It was really fun. It was.
That's cool. What album was that for A Perfect Circle? Was the first one, the Merdinum, or was like?
No, I don't even remember. I can remember the year, kind of. I mean, I don't think we had recorded. I think we had just recorded Serenaded in Red, so that would have been our second record with Albini. So, you know.
Well, it could be like the first or second album. Anyhow, I don't know.
No, I'm talking about for Oxbow's record. I don't Perfect Circle. I never listened to them before and haven't listened to them since. So,
yeah, cool. Yeah, dude. I mean, thank you very much for everything. You've been a star. I've been a legend.
All right.
Just about oh, sorry, it's the dog going everywhere. It's a mess.
Yeah, I love dogs.
She is lovely. Honestly, she is lovely. She's called Cindy. Yeah, she's a good girl. So yeah, tattoos. You full of tattoos, aren't you? And this one is the last question. After I let you know, I know you're really busy. Anyone you regret on your body, or you're fine with all of them?
Well, you know, the thing that's funny about tattoos, and you know, I mean, nobody knew about tattoo care back in the days. So some of my tattoos are actually sun damaged. But no, I mean, people always talk about tattoos and regrets. And my attitude is, if the tattoo is all I have to regret at this point in my life, then I've done pretty well. So I sort of am sad by the ones that you can't really read anymore, but they're just for me, and I know what they say anyway, so I'm fine. So I have no regrets.
No regrets. That's actually that's the philosophy. No regrets, guys. I don't want to regret either. Right, Eugene, you've been a star. Thank you very much for spending this time with us, and we wish you all the best. I'm gonna come and see you in Birmingham, guys. So all
right. Well, then come up and say hello. Bring the dog. Bring the dog with you.
I can't. It's not my dog, man. I mean, it's the dog of my editor. I mean, I can show you the girl if you want. Hello. That's the first.
Hi. That's great.
Yeah, she's great, though. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. All right.
We'll see you in Birmingham, man. All right.
Yeah. Bye.